and welcome to another episode of Cat Kids Art Corner. My name is Devon, and I have my assistant Georgie being lazy on my lap today. We're both really excited that you're joining us for another episode. I have a very fun task today that I actually just learned how to do, so I'm looking forward to sharing that art task with you today. But before we do that art task, let's check in with our minds and our bodies and make sure that we are ready to make some art today. So let's start with 3 deep breaths. We're going to take up a lot of space today in our deep breaths. So what I want you to do is take a deep breath, raise your hands up as high as you can, and then let it out. All right, we're going to do that just 2 more times today. Take a deep breath in, arms up. And then a deep breath out. One more deep breath in. And take a deep breath out. Okay, awesome. So what I wanted to talk about today before we get started on our art activity is to talk about how we feel when things feel out of control. Oftentimes when things happen that are out of our control, that can trigger some big emotions, right? We talk about big emotions. I don't like to use the word bad or anything like that in terms of emotions, because no emotions are bad, but some can feel overwhelming. So when things are out of our control, it might lead us to feel angry, we might feel upset, we might feel sad, and sometimes when we get in those feelings, it can be really hard to get out of those feelings. Oftentimes I talk about our emotions sort of as these glasses that we put on, right? So if something makes me mad, and I feel stuck in that mad feeling, I'm going to have my mad glasses on, and I'm only going to see the world through these mad glasses. And when I have these mad glasses on, do you think that I'm seeing the world clearly, or do you think I might be seeing it a little bit differently? And so this is where it comes in handy to talk a little bit more about what to do with our big feelings whenever things feel out of our control. And to do that, I'm going to draw a little bit of an example, because I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a visual person. So let's say that this is me, okay? And I'm going to draw a circle around me, okay? Everything inside of this circle is things that I can control, okay? Now, what do you think are some of the things that I can control? I can control how I respond to emotions. I can control what I say to other people. I can control how I spend my free time. I can control whether I do my chores today. And typically, not always, but typically, we don't always get upset about the things that we can control. It's what lives in this outer circle right here. That's where we sometimes get caught up a little bit. So what do you think are some things that you can't control? Let's use this, okay? So the things that live in this circle right here, on the outer circle, things that you can't control. You can't control other people. You can't control the weather. You can't control anything that really goes on in the world, right? You can only control how you respond to it, okay? And it's important to think about that whenever we have these big emotions, because when we get very upset about things that we can't control, it can feel like everything is out of control. And that's when those feelings get bigger and bigger, and that's when our anger glasses or upset glasses or sad glasses start to get even more intense, and it can be kind of hard to get out of that feeling. So what I always like to recommend is whenever you start feeling these big emotions, to focus on this inner part right here. Okay? Things that you can control. You can control what you do with your big emotions. You can control whether you want to go scream into a pillow because you're mad. You can control whether you make some art whenever you're upset. I recommend doing some scribble drawing. Sometimes it just feels really good to scribble on a piece of paper when I'm upset. But the stuff that lives on the outside, the things that we can't control, it's important to understand that that's out of our control, but we do have a lot of things within our control, especially how we keep our bodies safe, how we use kind words, all of this other stuff. And when feelings are really, 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 really big, it feels like we can't control them. So it often helps to kind of come back to this inner circle and focus on the things that you can control. So why am I talking about this today? Because this art activity today kind of goes along with that same idea. There's a lot of things that you can control when we're making this art activity, but you can't 100% control how it's going to turn out. And I am a really big fan of art projects that are like that because it shows that even though you can't control how your project turns out, it's going to turn out awesome either way. So we're going to be doing marbleized paper today. I did a couple examples I wanted to share with you before we started our project. So I had no idea how this was going to turn out. I only was able to choose the colors and then kind of go from there. I have another example here with some different colors. All right, so you get these really cool like abstract designs. And so what I'd like you to do is, as usual, you saw that I have supplies listed at the beginning. Go ahead and gather those supplies, and we're going to check back in. And we're going to keep talking about how sometimes things are out of our control, but that's also okay. So go ahead and grab your materials and check back in with me in just a minute, okay? Now we are back and we are ready to mix up our oil and our food coloring to be used for our marbleized paper. Now I only have 2 cups because I'm only going to use 2 colors. You can use as many colors as you want with as many cups as you want. The main reason I am just doing 2 cups is you might notice these boxes behind me. I'm moving and I accidentally packed all my cups already. So this is what I'm working with. We are being flexible. We are using what we have. So you want to put about 1 or 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil in each cup. And after you do that, you are going to put your food coloring in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm putting more than usual food coloring in here because I want the color to be really vibrant. Now, something that you might notice, which I love to kind of look at, is how the food coloring doesn't really want to be mixed into this vegetable oil. It's kind of sitting separately. Now, what that means is that you are going to need to spend probably a little bit more time than you want to mixing your colors up. And so if you want to ask an adult for help, I'm sure they would be happy to help you. I am going to pause this recording and spend some time mixing this up, and I will give you an example of what it should look like after it's all mixed up. Welcome back. So I have both of my colors mixed up. I just want you to take a look and see how you can't really see the droplets anymore. It's been real mixed up. I probably spent about a minute for each color on that. So I have a nice pink and I have a nice yellow. So what you want to do is you want to take your baking pan. I have a craft tray, so I'm using that. Basically anything that is shallow, any sort of pan that's shallow that can hold a little bit of water. You don't need too much water at all. So I'm going to move my computer so you can see what I'm doing. I am pouring just enough water to cover the whole pan. There we go. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I am just going to slowly pour my food coloring and vegetable oil mixture Just kind of like any random design that I want. You might have a few more colors than me, so this process might take a little bit longer for you. And remember what I said earlier about control? You might be noticing that you can't really control where this oil goes. It kind of does what it wants, but that's a little bit of the beauty of this activity, is that it's just going to be a surprise. But you do have some control, so if you want, you can take the end of your spoon or whatever you use to stir it, and you can kind of move the colors around, see if you can kind of change where they go. All right, so you want to grab your paper, and you want to make sure that it's a heavier paper than just a regular white computer paper. So I have some watercolor paper, but you could probably also use like an index card if you have that. Just something that is going to hold water better than regular computer paper. So what I'm going to do, it's a little bit curved, so I'm going to make sure it flattens out a little bit. And I am going to drop it just on the surface of the water, kind of help it press down a little bit, and if you watch the paper, you're going to notice that the oil is coming through. See, that's a little bit like a magic trick. So we want to leave this on here for long enough for the colors to soak in a little bit. So let's give it a count of like 10, a little bit longer. And if you notice over here on my hand, there's some water coming up on the other side. That means I pressed it down a little bit too hard, but that is okay. Your paper is totally fine. All right. So when you think it's ready, we are going to pull our color up. Ooh, okay, cool. So I've got this really neat kind of like light yellow and light pink design. All right, and our paper is wet and it's oily, so we are going to find a safe place for it to dry. Look at those colors though, isn't that so cool? Let me get this out of the way. Okay. I'll leave it here for now. So let's take a look back at how a dried one turns out. That's pretty cool, right? And as I said before, I feel like this activity is such a cool one because you don't know how it's going to turn out. You kind of just have to go with the flow, and I think that's a good lesson overall, is just to accept the things that are out of your control and use it as an opportunity to practice the things that are in your control, like coping skills and like using kind words. And with that, I will leave you today. Thank you so much for spending time with me and joining us at another Cap Kids Art Corner. I will see you guys soon. Take care.